I've just realized I'm muted. That's going to make an interview a little bit interesting. Good morning, Min. It's lovely to see you. I thought this morning, so as we come to the end of this first section of the Reconnection Revolution's connection to the natural world and spirit, I wanted to do a little recap. When I set out to do this particular section of, my apologies, I've got the sound not off. This particular section, it is something that I feel so passionate about, and it is such a potentially enormous conversation that it was like, how do I simplify this? How do I find the little nuggets? And as I thought about it, in truth, I became more and more and more not overwhelmed, but there were just so many pieces. Monica, good morning. Good morning. Hi, Pina. I thought there's so many pieces. There's so many things that I could potentially talk about. And so I sat on it for quite a while and was like, I feel like this is not ready. I'm not ready to birth this into the world. And then it was just this feeling of, I need to just make a start. I need to make a start and get the conversation started. So I reached out to a few different people and trusted that the people who were able to join me in this first week would deliver amazing content and just get the conversation started. And what has evolved, of course, has been absolutely perfect. So what I wanted to do was just to give a little recap, because I think when we're hearing things from different people on, in some ways, vastly different topics, there's a common thread, but different topics, we can get a little bit lost along the way. And I'm a really big fan in recapping. I think we can get in the place of, we consume the next thing, and it's like the next thing, the next conversation, the next book. There's particularly those of us that are just so hungry for knowledge and personal development and learning and growth. And so there's always the next thing. But if we don't take time to come back and do a little recap, it just kind of filters through our brains and it doesn't land. So what I want to do is do a little recap. Yes, I'm nursing my coffee for the morning at 10:40 in the morning, which for me is a massive shift. And this has happened this week with Kylie saying, suggesting that I start eating breakfast, which I really haven't done for quite a few years. And my whole morning is now needing a revamp, because it's amazing how you throw one thing in and it throws everything else into not out. I want to find the language. It's not that everything is not fabulous. It is just that things need to shuffle so that I can fit all the bits in. And suddenly my coffee, where was, something that I had at 7 o'clock in the morning, is now happening at 10:30. Amazing, the little things. So as I give you these little things that through these interviews, it's like, be aware that it is in the tiny changes that the big things happen, that big changes happen. So it's just taking on one little thing at a time. So, and the bilby, too cute. I could not share that with you. So we started with Christine, and we've got Liz with us as well. Good morning, darling. So we started with Christine, who is the founder of Syntropic World. And when I found Christine, I thought, this is going to be a potentially massive conversation. How do I bring this in so that I don't lose everybody in? She has such an enormous picture and such a huge body of wisdom and knowledge that she has to share. And I was like, we're going to do this in half an hour, 40 minutes. How do I get something from this for the extraordinary women in my community to take away and have something that they can use? And it's not always that we get to put it into action. Sometimes it is just that there's a seed planted, and as the universe wants you to learn something, you will hear it again and again, perhaps in different ways, but it will keep just trusting that it will continue to unfold. And if you want to go back, I know there were a few people who felt a little lost from that interview, and that is fine. It is just the little seeds of a new concept. What she is proposing is that we need to radically change and restart the way that we're doing so many things. And I actually think she's absolutely spot on. She's absolutely spot on. But what I don't want is for people to feel lost in that, well, I don't know what my part is in that. So it just feels like it's too much out there and not something that I can do. So if you want to listen to that again, you will, every time you listen to it, you will probably take something different away. But the essence of what she's talking about is, how do we create a world that works for humanity, Earth, and all her creatures? Humanity, Earth, and all her creatures. And this is going to take rethinking our education system, our healthcare system, our governance and economics, and, you know, across the board. So yeah, it's big, but everything that we're doing from the moment we wake up in the morning, when it's conscious, is contributing to that bigger conversation. And for those that feel wired and their purpose is to be part of the bigger change, that's perfect as well. But it is just as valuable to be doing stuff at the grassroots. I hope that makes sense for everyone. Then we had Kylie. Kylie was back with us. What a fabulous conversation. It's always an amazing conversation with Kylie. She has that beautiful earth energy that makes it easy to hear what she's saying. And, you know, we talked about using food as medicine, using herbs, talking about hormones and how we just come back to the things that we put in our mouth. It's such, if we can just bring this intention to what we're doing, seeing the food, really having a relationship with the food that we're eating, makes such a difference. I had the idea to take you on a little tour of my garden, and it was, you know, there is always that feeling of like, is this going to be helpful? And it's easy for me to look at it and see all the things that it could be slightly different, and wonder if it's going to work for people. But I got so much feedback about my love for the plants, my love for the garden. And that's really exactly what I wanted you to take away, because it is that connection to the natural world, is connection to the food that we eat. And the little bubble of joy I get when it's still dark in the morning and I go out and pluck an orange off the orange tree and cut it up to put in Archie's lunchbox. The joy that brings me, I don't know, I want to say it's ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous. It's this joy that feeds our connection to the natural world. We think about the joy that comes when you get I'm looking at my rings, but like a fabulous new ring or something. These are the icing on the cake. This is the incidental stuff. If we don't find the joy in the everyday, this morning I cut up, yesterday I went to our local Whole Foods and I got a pink grapefruit. It was the first thing that I ate this morning. And when I cut it up, I'm looking at the color and I'm thinking about the farmer and just really present with the flavor. And, Laurie's in the background going, well, somebody's got to love grapefruit because otherwise they'd be feeling pretty left out. He can't eat grapefruit. He's just the bitterness just doesn't work for him at all. Where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so delicious. It is so yummy. It's this connection, this reverence, this love, this awe, this wonder. This is the ingredient that connects us to the natural world and spirit. And then Cindy came in and she talked to us about story and using stories. Stories are the essence of life. And it's amazing how when these things land, they just land in such a profound way in our brains. In a mastermind that we ran this week, a few of the women here are in the mastermind. We had a call, and the sharing of stories from the women in the group was just like, this is where the magic happens. It's in the stories, our stories. It's that different experience between watching a documentary and you hear David Attenborough talking about the natural world and the way that he speaks about our planet and our world. That connection to our soul is something quite different to the made-up stories that we watch on the entertainment stories. Experiment with yourself. Think about when you pick up a book and you read something that is a genuine human experience. It's magic. And when we can share this with each other, share our stories and how we do things. Some of the women have shared pictures of their gardens, pictures of antique furniture. It's like, that's that connection. This is what connects us, is story. And this is how we feed our children's passion for life, through story, through stories about their grandparents and about their parents. And, like I've got my sisters love telling naughty stories about their mum, about me to my kids and the things that I've done. I'm like, oh, can you just not tell them that, please? But they're the things that my kids remember and they just love it. Oh, they love finding out juicy things about mum. These are the things that we remember. This is how we connect, human to human, and human, yes, we are part of the natural world, but to the world around us, to animals. And this is stories. So powerful. And then we had Cynthia yesterday morning talking about permaculture. Oh, who didn't love that idea of pulling up a chair for Earth at the table? Just energetically, that idea, using the permaculture principles in our lives, in our everyday lives. So special and so doable for anyone, anywhere. I deliberately asked her about the balcony or the pot of herbs. Last night on my stories, I took a little video while I'm out pulling parsley out of my garden, because I want you to see the vibrancy of the color and the pleasure that comes. This is the everyday stuff. This is the stuff that makes us healthy and happy. I've repeated it a few times, but yes, I love having a beautiful car and a beautiful house and my jewelry and my, but they're the icing on the cake. It's how we look at the world around us. It's how we connect with the people in the world around us. That is what makes us happy. It's that old saying, money doesn't buy happiness. It is so true. It's the icing on the cake. And yes, I do believe that money in our hands as conscious, amazing women is really good for the world. The wealthier we are, the more good we can do in the world, the more difference we can make in the world. I think it's great. And I'm all for women being very wealthy. But it's the icing on the cake. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It's this connection, the view through which we look at the world around us makes the big difference. And then last night, Inara, who's just such an incredibly strong and powerful and wise woman. I've known her for some years now. And the way she talks about things is just such a different perspective for so many people. It's that new earth conversation. It's like, I kind of hear her, but I don't quite get it. Tell me more. It's that leaning. She has that energy that makes you want to lean in. And just like, I don't know how many times I need to hear the way you talk about things, and, you know, the way she talks about becoming a high priestess, and she brings it back to earth. It's not about being lofty. It's just about the journey that she went on. And that's the title she's been given, just like an architect or a doctor or a teacher it's because of the education and the path that she went on to become that. And her story of connection to spirit, I think, is really interesting for many of us, particularly those of us that who's as I talked about last night, you know, for many of us, our connection to spirit is founded in that first experience of connection to religion, to Christian God. And for those of us that didn't find that connection, it's like, well, that's kind of a one and done. That's all there was. But it's not. There's so much more. And it's just a journey of discovery for what it is for each of us. What it is for each of us. And it's going to be really interesting when Marcus comes on just shortly to talk about this, because he's, you know, it is part of his exceptional life blueprint. I said in the email it was the seventh pillar, but it's actually the eighth. But yeah, it's, you know, it is finding that within your own environment, within your own stories, within your own belief systems. What is it? And then the other thing that I mentioned last night that I'm wondering if anybody did was I talked about the bonobo monkeys, the TED Talk. Did anybody actually go? I'm seeing you smile. Nobody's actually gone and watched it yet. What I'll do is pop a link in. I'll pop a link in the Facebook group so that people can find it easily. But there is a new world that is coming, and it is a changing world, and it's going to be a vastly different world. And if I think about the change that has happened just in the lifetime of my children, things are moving very, very quickly. Things are moving and changing very, very quickly. When I think about the fact that, you know, as a 51-year-old woman, we didn't even have computers and mobile phones when I was at school. Like, it was just, I can still remember getting my first mobile phone, and I'd already had children. And suddenly every human on the planet's got a mobile phone and a computer and an iPad and multiple devices. And like with so many things that we do as humans, we do this massive shift. It's like, this is the new, we want that. And then we just drop the old. So we go, everybody's vegan, or everybody's vegetarian, then everybody's paleo, then everybody's raw, then everybody's all cooked. And it's like, then everybody's celery juicing, and then everybody's intermittent fasting. And we do these massive swings. This is the thing. And then this is the thing. And I think that this is what we have done with the introduction of technology. It has become so captivating. It is, in my opinion, probably next to sugar, in the most addictive thing that humanity is facing right now. It is addictive, but it's not all bad. What we need to do, what we get to do, is find the balance. And I believe to have technology in our lives in a healthy way, we need to have a little bit more nature than we have technology. So we came up with this 80-20 rule. This is only literally just landing in my brain now. So it's not something that I've thought about forever. Please don't take it away and go, Edwina says. But, you know, we talk about this 80-20 rule with food. And it's like, it's got to be something like this with technology in the natural world. We get to use technology in a healthy, empowering, amazing, connective way. But we need balance. We need to bring back the balance. Does that mean sitting in the garden with our phones? Not so much. It means leaving one on the table inside and going out in nature without it. So, have a play with this, have a think about this without fault, blame, guilt, shame. Please just flush that down the toilet. What we're doing is just getting curious. It's like, where's the balance in my life? Where am I just taking, for those of us that work from home, where am I doing 50 minutes of work, putting everything down and going and grounding and sticking my feet on the earth and putting my face in the sun? Where am I going for walks in the morning and leaving my phone at home, go for a walk for an hour and watch the world wake up, and then go for a walk again in the afternoon if it's possible? Watch the sun go down. These are the things that reset the circadian rhythms in our bodies. This is the connecting to our hormones, and everything needs to work in harmony. We're working with nature. We are nature. If we cut nature out, we're cutting part of ourselves out. We can't separate the two. The two get to work in harmony. In absolute perfect timing, Marcus is with us. Marcus, welcome.
Oh, Edwina, hope you're awesome. Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to a fabulous Friday conversation with you all.
Yes, absolutely. So Marcus was with us most of people were in the last series when Marcus was with us. So a minimal introduction is probably necessary, but for anybody that hasn't come across Marcus before, he is the mastermind behind the Exceptional Life Blueprint, and which is has come about through your having interviewed, I don't know how many people now, but over years, many people, centenarians, and gathering from that the ingredients that go into living an exceptional life. And one of the pillars in the exceptional life is connection to spirit, which is where we're going to focus today. So Marcus, where is going to be a great place to start this conversation? I'm imagining if we can go back to where did you, I spoke last night about my first connection to spirit was being in a Church of England school and sitting in a pew being told that there was God or nothing. And so that's, that was my evolution of then trying to find my place in connection to spirit. So perhaps if we start with where did you start?
Well, yeah, my mum is one of 15 children in a very Catholic upbringing. My pa was a widow of 10 with 10 children when the mother of the first 10 died, giving birth to my auntie Christine, and then my nana, God bless her, as a 33-year-old single nurse, became an instant mother of 10, and then had 5 children. One of them being my mum. And so I've always said thank you to Anne Seymour for giving up her life so that, my nana could come into the family and give birth to 5 more. And I say that because the Anderson family of Melbourne were a very Catholic family. My mum grew up in what is known as the Ivanhoe Girls Grammar Art Department. It's an old house in Ivanhoe, Melbourne. And all of the girls were shipped off to boarding school at Genazzano, and all of the boys were shipped off to Assumption College. And that's how that Catholic family was raised. And I say that because growing up a son of a very Catholic, child, my mum almost became a nun. Anyone that knows my mum, who is like the life of the party, would be like, there's no way she could keep quiet in a convent. But I definitely grew up. I went to a Catholic school in Melbourne, Xavier College. And yes, like you, Edwina, I have memories of the church and the smell of the church and everything that goes along with a Catholic upbringing. And so when you say, where do we start a conversation like today? I think it does start for a lot of people with a guilt and shame response, but it has translated. It's gone beyond this. oh gosh, I had a Catholic upbringing type of poor history. It's actually now more like, I don't meditate. Does that mean I'm not spiritual, or I'm not grounding in the morning? Is there a problem with that? Oh my gosh, I wear shoes in the house. Like, I'm not connected to the land. Oh, I'm terrible at gardening. I can't keep a flower alive. Like, am I not like good enough, spiritual enough, connected enough? There is so much guilt around spirit. And I now live up in the Byron Bay area, Mullumbimby, where we can feel your energy and you're a bit off and, you know, your vibing is not right with me. And it's like, oh my gosh, we've like overcomplicated spirit to be such a status symbol of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to take a break. I think we need to go even like more deep and meaningful and go like, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and let's just leave it at that. Like, we have honestly overbaked the spiritual cake so hard that we have made it so hard to win at fulfillment. We are so hard on ourselves if we don't enter our 3 gratitudes for the day, if we don't authentically listen all the time, you know, if we're not at peace with the world all the time. We've become addicted to happiness. We've become addicted to having a smile on our face and being nice to everyone. Again, I'm a bit ranty on a Friday, apologies, but I do think we've really got to be mindful of what an exceptional spirit really is. And, you know, in essence, it's none of the things that I've just mentioned, put it that way.
I always said nice is cheap. Nice is
fine,
cheap.
and I would say fine. Fine is cheap. How are you? Fine, thanks. I'm like, oh dear. There's a red flag right there. If that word ever comes out of my mouth, you can literally uppercut me because I don't know about you, but fine is they'd probably call it a mental health red flag these days. Because fine is not fine.
No, I had a little, you know, we had a little group of friends that were helping maintain each other's sanity during the great lockdown. And I actually banned the word fine because I said, is fine, does that mean your head's in the oven, but you haven't turned the oven on? Or like, where do we put fine on there?
Someone will find the acronym for fine because it's all over the memes. But I'm not going to swear, but, you know, it's effed up, insecure, neurotic, emotional, something like that.
So good. So good.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So the transition from your Catholic upbringing, and I'm saying transition without knowing if you still follow Catholicism.
I would definitely call myself agnostic. I'm a bit of everything. For me, no one's wrong, no one's right. Yeah. It's not black and white. It's a philosophy as much as far as I'm concerned, rather than a game of facts and right and wrongs. And the ABC fact checkers cannot prove that any one religion or faith is better or more real than another, no matter what they want to give us. So, no, I'm all for having a great, robust conversation at the dinner table, but there is a great line. It might be a Tolstoy one-liner, but where I think it's the story of Ivan Illich, and it's like he gets to the end of his life and he's like, what if I've been all wrong? Like, how do we really know that the life that you're living or the life that I'm living is the way to live? Like, when I'm telling people how to make the rest of your life the best of your life, what if I am completely wrong? Like, there is nothing to prove that I am 100% spot on or even 80% spot on. But isn't that like one of the glorious things of life? My kids think I am wrong about so many things, as I'm sure a lot of parents listening to this today, you know, but other people think that I am so on point about so many things. Like, who's actually correct in that conversation? My kids, my peers, the people I speak to. I would probably say a mixture of all of them. And I don't think we can be so dogmatic, particularly in the conversation around spirit, that there is one way to be spiritual. Like, if I was to be on my deathbed and someone said, how do I live a more spiritual life? My one answer would be, get a good night's sleep. Full stop. Exclamation mark. Conversation over. Because it is so much easier to be at peace with the world, to be at peace with what is happening. And there is so much happening in the world right now. My next door neighbors, Ania, Mel and Alicia, are in Israel right now on a repatriation flight trying to get home. And it's like, how do we be at peace with so much of the of the events happening around the world. And I maintain that it is a hell of a lot easier to get through the challenges of life on a good night's sleep rather than a poor night's sleep. And so a lot of people are like trying to meditate and be grateful and do their mindfulness practice and their breath work and their ice baths, but they're staying up till 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m, watching Netflix and documentaries that are freaking them out even more, getting up at 6 or 7 a.m. on a poor night's sleep, trying to undo that by meditating or hopping in an ice bath and thinking that that's the way to live. I'm like, dude, or dudette, like we just got to chill out, go to bed. I reckon have a screen-free night, read a book, talk to your partner, read a book to your kids. The amount of clients I'm saying at the moment who are struggling on connecting with their children, I'm like, I know you did it when you were younger, but have you ever considered like reading a good book with your teenage child as an end to the day ritual? And the people that are doing it are like, I've got a better relationship with my child just by literally lying on the bed or sitting on the couch, reading. One client I spoke to yesterday is going to go back to their teenage years and read Tomorrow When the War Began by John Marsden to their teenage child. And I was like, that is so cool. Anyone that's in my vintage, 80s and 90s child will remember reading, great John Marsden books. But these are the things that lift our spirits, that raise our soul. They're so simple. They're actually not complicated. And if there's any spiritual practice that is complicated, I'd be throwing it in the bin that quickly. It's not funny.
John Marsden was my English teacher.
Oh, I love that. And now he has his own school, doesn't he?
Yeah, my daughter went there.
John Marsden was your, that is the best little trivia question right there. When next you are hosting trivia night, Edwina, who was my English teacher growing up? That's so good.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I think it's really interesting that you brought up the stories and sleep. I had an appalling day on Monday, and I rang my Ayurvedic psychic friend who always has the right prescription for me. And she said, I want you to run yourself a bath, and then I want you to wrap yourself up in bed and listen to a fairy tale, download a fairy tale. A children's fairy tale, and just cocoon. And it was the best prescription. It was perfect. It was perfect.
Honestly, I love this. And there's I think that's why, a lot of people here will know of Kim Morrison's work. I think we really feel an alignment to, these types of messages, because it's actually coming back to the core of, we all just want to live a more simplistic life. I'm all about an exceptional life, but an exceptional life is not a complicated life. It's a simple life, and the simple nighttime rituals that allow you to live with an uplifting spirit are these self-care rituals: running a bath, burning an oil, reading a book, listening to a fairy tale. I'm reading Jane Eyre to my daughter at the moment, and like reading how slow their life was. Like walking into town, it was only a 3-mile walk into town. I'm like, a 5K walk into town to deliver one envelope, or to go to the post office to see if mail had arrived without any promise of that mail arriving. A 10K walk round trip. Can you imagine? Now we get to the post office, which is a 5-minute drive away, and there's 2 people in front of us, and we're like, come on, hurry up. I've got to go pick up the kids from school. It's like, oh my gosh. Like, you read these books and you go, okay, I think I'll just calm down a little bit, because I'm probably a little bit wired and highly strung right now. So I love your Ayurvedic practitioner already, because these are the types of things that we need a bit of a reality check. I think it's why I'm obsessed with going to Ikaria every year, because it's literally in your face how slow their lifestyle is. And there's nowhere really in Australia that has it. Like, Byron has close things to it, but it's still got traffic in the tourist season, and you're going in there to pick up kids and whatever. But regional towns are slower. But anyone here, I can see Liz Sefton's here, who lives in Kai, and Pina as well, and I know Min's up in Yeppoon, and I'm like, these are not big cities. They're regionals, but pace can still be quick, and you're still on the clock. And I do think a really exceptional spirit is not looking at the clock, because that takes you out of the present moment. I've always said the clock puts you into the past or into the future. You're anxious about what time it is, and because you're late for something, or you're guilty that you're already late for something that you've missed in the past. And that just brings anything other than presence, into our way of being. And so these are just simple little things. I don't wear a watch. I purposefully do not wear a watch, because knowing the time is it's just an easy way to not be in the present, even though it gives you the present time. It just makes you think of, what have I got to do, or what haven't I done? And all of a sudden we're out of whack.
Yeah. So when you talk about spirit in the Exceptional Life Blueprint,
yeah,
how do you, what is the context, or yeah.
So just so I don't over chew everyone's ear off, I talk about the fact that we live in a conflict of opposites. Like, we can't get out of the fact that right now there's more than two wars going on in the world, but there are two wars getting the headlines in the world right now. But then there's also, I look outside, it's a blue sky, there's not much wind, it's a beautiful day. I'll probably go for a swim at lunchtime. The kids want a night swim before bed tonight, and it's just an idyllic lifestyle that I'm experiencing. And right now over in Israel, it's a hell on earth lifestyle that others are experiencing. So one of the elements that we must be at peace with is, it's probably not the right terminology, but we have to fully recognize as we are living our lives, is that we do live in a conflict of opposites, and fulfillment is somewhere in the middle. Is it can we live gracefully, knowing that there is all types of pain happening on the other side of the world, and depending on how close it is and how many people we have that we know over there, you can experience survivor guilt, which is I know we felt that during the floods, and there's people that have gone through all types of challenge where it's like, why me? I'm survived, or my house is okay. And again, I know there's people listening here that were caught up in the floods of Northern Victoria, but I think we have to recognize that in life, pain is inevitable. And as a result of that pain, that's what gives us our resilience. And if we move through that resilience, that's what gives us our optimism. And that's how optimism is generated. Optimism that I'm talking about is not that childlike optimism where they're just saying best day ever because they got an ice cream. I'm talking about the optimism that it's like, you move through challenging periods of your life, you come out the other end and you go, just like Karen Smith did on when she survived the Bali bombing. She's like, oh my gosh, actually, I went over there to kill myself. I survived. My best friends died. I'm somehow not dying. I must be pretty amazing to have wanted to kill myself, not done that, gone through the Bali bombings, lost my best friend, and now here I am. Like, I think I'm going to take an optimistic view on life to actually move forward into my future. So it's only through challenge that occurs. So I think we've got to be really mindful of, and I would encourage everyone listening or watching today, like, reflect on the challenging times that you've experienced. And if you haven't written an empowering story, like an empowering survival story, and then a thrival story of how you've moved through that, maybe it's time to redefine that, whether you buried, whether you lost parents when you were young, if you've had that traumatic experience of burying children, if you've lost partners, if you've just gone through harrowing experiences in your life, having a thrival type story is just, it's imperative for the spirit in the context of we're going to live a long time. So again, Eddie JQ, Holocaust survivor, happiest man on earth. Before he died, and I may have mentioned him before, but he was a very unhappy man for many years after the Holocaust, up until the birth of his son. And it was when he looked into the eyes of his newborn son, he was like, hold on a minute. I actually have to be a happier man for my son. I can't raise this child in the current pessimistic, traumatized lifestyle that I'm currently living. And that requires that personal growth of going, okay, I've survived. A lot of people have died, but I have to piece that together. So that recognition that pain is going to happen in our lives is important. I feel like we go through a challenge every 12 weeks. So I think that's real. Like, if you think of your life, 4 times a year, SHIT is going down. Whether it's something with your kids, maybe someone dies, something big's happening. Like, there's all types of things happening. It's about every 12 weeks. I'm just going through a couple of others so that I don't go too quick here. I think working through what I call the ladder of spiritual practice. I mentioned sleep. I think breath is really important, but not in the breath work type manner. Just thinking and considering how we breathe. If you watch a human being breathing, a child's a great example. They're not breathing out of their shoulders. They're breathing out of their belly. But most of us throughout our days, we breathe like this. And then as we fall asleep, we begin to breathe, let's say, physiologically harmoniously. But the very fact that we're breathing like this throughout the day is just a reflection of the stress that we're carrying. So I won't go through it now. How do we actually breathe correctly? It's just, there are a dime a dozen on Google, but like sleep and breath. And then I call it prayer, but I also call it like self-talk or talking out loud to whoever it is that you believe in. They're the three practices that I would say are like timeless. That's a state of being. Like, are you sleeping? Are you breathing? Like, that's not something you do. That's just like, it's actually who you are. You are a sleeping, breathing, praying being. And if you don't like the word praying, again, I go to bed at night going, thank you for my life. I don't even really know who I'm saying it to. Is it an old man with a long white beard? I don't think so. Is it a Buddha underneath a Bodhi tree? I don't think so. Is it Muhammad out at Mecca somewhere? I don't think so. Like, is it like an invisible energy that probably feels more like me? But that's just where I'm at in my life. That could change. It could be an old lady, on the beach tomorrow. Who knows? It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that I go to bed at night just going, thank you for my life. Thank you, world, for my life. And it's kind of like my lullaby to myself as I go to bed at night. And that, for me, would be a form of prayer. My nana had all types of prayers in like a prayer book. And, she had, 15 children. And I've got like, I think it's in the 80s of first cousins, and everyone in our family has a number, like, the cousins, and then, or like the grandkids, and then the great grandkids, and the great grand. She had so many people to pray for, but she would pray for all of them, literally by name, every night, like a rosary beads. Oh yes, and of course, then she'd have the rosary beads and so on. But that's more like a ritual of prayer. Some people listening or watching have a ritual of prayer, and I think that's amazing. My ritual is more just it's a mantra of thanks and gratitude at the end of the night as I'm closing my eyes, and it's not more complicated than that. It may become more than that as I get older, but again, as a parent of 4 young children, I don't feel like I've got the bandwidth for much more than that, but other people do. Like, and I do talk about judgment in forms of like a spirit limiter. Like, if we were to go, the way you meditate is not right, or your green juice is not correct, or you shouldn't just do your 3 gratitudes, you've got to like do your breath work. I'm like, oh, just that judgment and that projection.
Yeah.
That for me is like, I'm just walking away, as soon as that's happening, I'm just retreating. When people think that their way is better than my way, I'm like, no, whatever works for you, it's the way to unleash your spirit.
Yeah. It's like we haven't quite left primary school. We're looking for permission or validation that we're getting it right. Am I going to get an A for this meditation? Or
And I think to be mindful of again, spirit limiters, like, and again, this isn't a judgment on social media. It's a question of our social media use is, how do we feel after we get off Instagram? How do we feel after we get off Facebook? It's a great question. Like, okay, how do I feel right now? Like, how hard is it? If anyone here goes on to post something, how hard is it to, and I often post on Instagram and it copies over to Facebook, but how hard is it to go on there, to just hit the plus button, to choose your photos and your videos, to put in your text and hit share or whatever, without seeing someone else's life, without getting some other piece of content of someone else's life. And then all of a sudden, you're 3 clicks down the path and you go, hold on, why did I come on here again? It's like, oh yeah, to post something or to reply to comments or whatever. And all of a sudden we've got other people's lives, I don't want to say infecting our psyche, but playing on our mind. At this time of the year, I'm in too many people's lives. I'm checking AFL updates, their lives that have nothing to do with me, but I want to know which player's playing where. And it's like, you don't want to be so distracted by other people's lives as you go about living your life, because it will just insidiously have an impact on your spirit, on how you view the world. And if it's not social media, it can be news consumption. We know that bad news increases our cortisol. It impacts our ability to sleep. We go to bed and adrenalized and worried about what's happening in Israel or Russia. And we can do nothing about this. So like absorbing this content, particularly in the last few hours of the day, is no good for our heart and soul. Like if you think that you have to be informed, again, I even say this to corporates, like why drive to work or go to work and be getting like news of Israel at 8 o'clock in the morning when you've got important meetings or people to see at 9 o'clock? Like you're just going to be, oh, have you seen what's going on in Israel? It's like, oh my gosh. And if you're working at a health practitioner or any work that you're in, if you're a teacher, bringing up the next generation, like these are just the things that we've got to be mindful of. I've always said the most important news that you want to be aware of is your news, your family's news, and your friends' news. Everyone else's news is ancillary. Like you don't need everyone else's news. And you always get the news from other people. My mum's a 3AW nut. She will always tell me what's going on in the world. Anything she thinks I need to know, she will send me a message of something that she thinks I need to know. And I love it. I love it. But I just think, other people will tell you the news. That's just another spirit limiter.
I have been heard to say, no, I don't want to hear enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to know.
I don't need to know. I'm happy to be uninformed and ignorant on that matter. Yeah.
Just as another idea or visual for people in that idea of prayer, I love the giving thanks. If you think about the lovely old movies that we watch where people sit around the table and hold hands and just take a minute to give thanks, or that yes. Slow gratitude, intention, connecting to where foods come from and the fact that we're all sitting together, that's another form of prayer that I think is really special.
Absolutely. And food also, like you say, connection to where the food comes from, but also the opportunity that food provides in that it brings people together. And in bringing people together, that can open and stimulate conversation. And I know with our kids, it's really, we have a rose thorn banana. What was your rose for the day? Like what was awesome? What was your thorn? What was a bit prickly and spiky? And then what was your banana? Like your banana peel, like something funny, your blooper, and kids in the playground, there's often something like, falling off the monkey bars. I don't know. But like, often in life, and it does concern me at times where the kids go, Dad, what was your banana? And I'm like, oh, shivers. Am I not having enough fun? There's not enough joy and smile in my life. Like, what was my banana today? It's like, I sit on my chair and then I stand up on my stand-up desk and I go for a walk and I make some client calls. And it's like, it's a bit confronting where it's like, what am I doing to have enough fun to give some banana to my kids at dinner time? But regardless of my beliefs on that at the minute, where I feel like I need more of that, but I think we have to be mindful of, are we creating those rituals in our life? Because sadly, a lot of people are having dinner in front of the TV and that's doing nothing for an exceptional spirit. I've never found a family that says, the best thing we did every night of our lives was eat in silence in front of the TV and not talk to each other. Like, I don't know if that's something that, I'm all for it every now and again. Kids watching a movie, and there might be an ice cream. I'm like, you're not eating it on the couch, come forward and just, watch that for 10 minutes eating an ice cream. But I'm not a big fan of food in front of the TV. I just doesn't sit well, given the history of how that was all created as a status symbol when the TV was invented and TV meals became like, again, a status symbol of people with TVs. It really ripped people away from the dining table back in the 50s. And sad to say, we haven't looked back.
No, I'm having a fabulous memory of, like, I was a single mum with 4 kids for many, many years. And the only time that I had to exercise before doing the school run and stuff was Zumba. I went through my Zumba phase and I would put Zumba on the telly. The kids would be all lined up on one side of the table and I would be between them and the TV doing Zumba. So that was their entertainment.
That's it.
entertainment.
And just so people think I'm not a zealot here, like I have great memories of watching the football every Friday night with my dad and sisters at the TV, either with fish and chips or snags and chips. And I loved it. But it was a
Yeah.
ritual. It wasn't an every night thing. It was every Friday night, maybe every second. Like we have a movie night most weekends in our house. I'm not saying don't spend time in front of the TV with your family. I'm just more saying make it a special experience rather than an every day, all the time, satiated. You know, when kids start getting bored in front of the TV, I'm like, okay, that's, you know, it's meant to be a source of entertainment. And I think that's something we've just got to be mindful of.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect. I feel like, you know, I'd love to direct people to finding your work on Spirit and the Exceptional Life Blueprint. So I'm guessing the best place for them to find that is in the book.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now, and it's like I did find the chapter on Spirit, the hardest to write because I feel like it is such an esoteric topic for so many, and like I really wanted to take the esoteric language out of it, given so many people that I've interviewed over the years are not esoteric spiritual gurus. A lot of them, as terrible as it sounds, end up in jail or in trouble. It's actually more, I wanted to talk to the everyday, you know, centenarian or graceful ager. So I'm just looking here and it's like, you know, gratitude, meditation, and mindfulness, like they're all very time stamped, like 3 gratitudes or 20 minutes of meditation or like 10 minutes of being mindful. But sleep, breath, and prayer, it's like you don't necessarily you're always doing them. Like you're sleeping every day, you're breathing every day, you're talking, thinking, believing, you know, out loud every day. So yeah, I feel like the book is probably the most comprehensive, organized guide on spirit. There are a number of different conversations we've had on the 100 Not Out podcast over the years with people around it. And then I suppose for people that are looking for an in real life experience, you know, on the upper echelon, I would say consider coming to Icaria or Sardinia with us in August, September next year. I think they're both very again, it's a not right term, but they are spiritual experiences. I would say they are deep and meaningful in every way. And then I do run a 2-day event in Byron Bay. I think I'll be running that 3 times next year, where it goes for 2 days, and we do an audit on life, purpose, movement, social, nutrition, family, growth, wealth, and spirit. 4 on Saturday, 4 on the Sunday, and spirit obviously being the big one to wrap it all up. So yeah, happy for people to inquire about that. If they get my emails, they will find out about that event and all the other bits and bobs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marcus. These
Oh,
conversations
thank you, Edwina.
exceptional.
You're a joy to spend some time with you and everyone in your community. And I know it's cliche, but thank you for providing the space for people to improve their lives. And it's something that once you're in this game, you never want to get out of it. The idea of settling for many people is the idea of going backwards, because life's not stopping. And the more we focus on living our best lives, the greater example that is for not just our children, for those that have children, but everyone around us. And I think from a spiritual perspective, it's more important than ever to unleash and express our exceptional spirit with everyone around us. So thanks for the opportunity to share my message with your community of wonderful human beings.
Absolute pleasure. I hope we do it again. We'll do it again.
Can't wait.
All right, that's it from us this morning. Lots of love, and I will see you again next week. There'll be more information coming out about that in the next couple of days. All right, lots of love, and bye for now.